Hello everyone, thank you so much for checking out this video. Today I'm going to share with you how to do some of the part 2 questions. So we're going to start off with number 25. Okay, so please read along. It says, find the average rate of change of the function shown to the right that represents the amount of money in a savings account in lender's bank. So I want to be aware of my key phrase up here, the average rate of change. At this point, everyone should be thinking of one word that we need to recall when we see the phrase average rate of change. This is going to clue me into what I need to do and what I need to find. Okay, that word is slope. So in order to find the slope, you do need to know your slope formula. This is something that will not be on your reference sheet and will not be given to you the day of the Regents. Your slope formula is not y equals mx plus b. That is the equation of a line. Slope is the letter m, and your slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Since they are asking me to find the average rate of change for the function to the right and they do not specify for where I should begin and where I need to end or stop, I am going to find the slope from the beginning values all the way to the last values. So remember, whenever you see a table of values, your left side represents your x values and the right side represents your y values. So now I could take these values that I have circled, my starting amount and my ending amount at week 5, and I could write them as ordered pairs. Okay, and 5, 184. Now it's up to you to plug in those values correctly into the formula and find your slope, which is your average rate of change. Please don't forget, when you find your final answer, we never circle our answers for part 2. Alright, number 26, factor completely. I have a feeling you will definitely see this pop up on your exam. When you see the phrase factor completely, that means you are going to factor more than once. So right now you should be thinking of your factoring methods, and you should be thinking of them in the order that we learned them. So remember that we learned our GCF method, then we learned then we learned our dots method, and then we learned the AC method. So when I look here at this trinomial, I must ask myself first, is there a GCF? So I look at all three terms and I see what I can find that they all have in common. So the greatest factor between these three terms, the number-wise, the highest number that can go into all three is a 2. But I also must look at my variables. So this one has 3 x's, my second term has 2, and my last one has 1. So the greatest amount that they all share is 1x. So therefore my GCF is 2x. Okay, so I'm going to set up my parentheses and make sure that now you are thinking of backwards distributing, and ask yourself, 2x times what will give me back my first term, 2x squared? 2x times what next would give me back negative 2x squared? And 2x times what value or what term would give me negative 12x? Once you've done GCF, you're going to look at what you ended up with this factor in here, okay, inside your parentheses, and you're going to ask yourself, can I do dots or can I do AC? You should only be able to either do dots or AC. Okay, so whatever's left in the parentheses, you will now factor that. In the end, for your final answer, don't forget to bring down your 2x. Okay, you should end up with something overall that looks like this. Alright, you're all set. Go ahead and complete 26 on your own. And remember, we do not circle our answers. Number 27, find one point that lies in the solution set. I think that sounds pretty important. I'm going to underline it. Of the following system of inequalities. Remember that a system just means more than 1, and I have 2 inequalities here. So I need to find one point that lies in that solution set. When the question states the use of a grid is optional, I usually like to think of that as being that the grid or using the graph paper is the easiest way to do this question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, graph this inequality, and then I'll graph the other one on the same plane. Remember, we are never allowed to graph any function until y is by itself. In this case, y already is. So I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. Okay, with this one, my slope is 1/2, the value of m, and my y-intercept, the value of b, is 6. I'll also identify my slope and y-intercept for this one, since y is already by itself. My slope is -3, and I like to make it a fraction, so I put it over 1. And my y-intercept is -1. So you're going to graph this inequality, plotting all the points that fit on the grid in either direction. Plot every single point. When you connect your points, remember with inequalities, you need to decide, are my lines going to be dotted or solid? Okay, for both of these. When you decide whether it's dotted or solid, you should be looking at the inequality sign. Okay, and you need to think about which one is which. And you have another decision you need to make after you connect your points with the dotted or solid line. You need to decide whether you're going to shade above or below the line. How you'll figure that out is you'll go back to your inequality signs that were here and here, and think about whether the inequality is applying that you would go above or below. So in the end, you should have some overlapping shaded region. Please remember to put a nice S with a circle that represents your solution set over the overlap. Okay? And whenever you're working on a question, it's a good idea to go back and reread and make sure you're answering the question that is asked. It does say find one point that lies in your solution set. So somewhere down here, please write your one ordered pair that would make sense in both of these inequalities. Also, this question says to justify your answer. So after you state your ordered pair, you would want to state why you chose that answer. Okay, go ahead. Number 28, solve for x. Ooh, I noticed right away that this is a quadratic function because the highest exponent is a 2. And in class, we learned numerous ways of how we can solve for x. Here are some options if some of them are not coming to mind. You can factor, and in this case, I believe you will have to factor completely, so more than once. Okay, and then you could t-chart it and solve. I know many of you are big fans of the quadratic formula. You may use that, and you can get that from your reference sheet to solve for x. And lastly, in class, we also learned how to complete the square. So if you like complete the square, you may do that, and then you need to solve for x, and your goal should be to isolate your parentheses squared. So just pick one of these methods and go ahead and solve for x. So in the end, your answer should look something like this with your solutions in a solution set. Please do not circle your answer, just list them in a solution set. You may also use your calculator when you are done with this, because you must show your work for all Part 2 questions, and you could plug this function in to y equals. Okay, when you plug this in, remember when it says solve for x, when you're finding the solutions, that also means that you are finding the roots or the zeros. So when you plug it into your calculator, make sure your solutions that you have down here are your roots that you should spot on your graph or in your table. Go ahead. All right, number 29. The product of 16 and 4 less than a number is 28. Find the number. So this type of question is requiring that you need to set up a let statement for this number. So you don't know something, you must set up a let statement. So we only need to find one number. So my let statement is going to read, let x equal the number. Now I must go back and reread so I can set up my equation that I'm going to solve to help me find this number. So let's see. The product, that means multiplying, of 16 and 4 less than a number is 208. So I'm going to start with what I'm a little bit more comfortable with and certain of. So my is my equals, and 208 should be on the right-hand side. Let's go back to the left. We have the product of 16 and something else. So my something else is 4 less than a number. Less than is a very popular phrase you will definitely see somewhere. Less than, remember, it's the order is the opposite. So if it says 4 first, 4 is going to come after the subtraction sign. In this case, it says 4 less than a number, and my let statement says that x is the number, so that's going to be x minus 4. So in my equation down here, it's the product of 16 and 4 less than a number. Please make sure when you're setting up a problem that involves multiplication and you have parentheses, you can just put it next to whatever you are multiplying. I'm hoping at this point you see what you need to do here. When you see parentheses, something should go off in your mind as to what you need to do, and I'm hoping that you notice it is to distribute. So please distribute. Make sure you multiply this binomial, both terms, by 16. Keep it an equation after you do that, and then you're going to follow your properties of equality to solve for x. In the end, you should get x equals something, and then stop there. Go ahead.